So I think the idea that we're persuading people at this point is done. And I think it's specifically just because of the Trump Biden / Harris. People say they don't know Harris, but she's going to be tied to the Biden administration. And so those are two very well-known candidates. And the idea that people are going to be persuaded, I think, is a fallacy. It's whether you can turn people out, whether you can scare them or give them hope, whatever their motivator is going to be, you got to motivate people.
All right, guys, welcome to the Sean Spicer Show. It is Tuesday, day 2 of the DNC, but I got a bit of big good news. If you're out there at the DNC, it's not just a regular Tuesday. Guess what Tuesday it is? That's right, White Guy Taco Tuesday. Well, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, look no further than the esteemed running mate of Kamala Harris to explain it.
Like I have white guy tacos and
what is
like
that?
black,
like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said to be careful and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota, you know.
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
I'm trying to expand
We'll figure that-
my food knowledge.
You know what? We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. I'm not kidding. What is that? That they put that out on purpose. On purpose. They wanted us to see that. They want to call other people weird? Are you kidding me? Well, I didn't even know there's anything called white guy tacos. I mean, like, this is the interaction they want you to see. Learn about us. By the way, this comes on the heels of the authentic Dorito. Hey, Tim, where are the Doritos? Oh, look, are there corn nuts too? Awesome. Could you hand me some Doritos? Oh, maybe my husband Doug can hand me some Doritos too in this convenience store that we just happened to be in. This is the fakest thing ever. I mean, they won't do interviews. No wonder. Can you blame them? Look at this. They can't even fake interactions. She started talking about growing cantaloupe. I'm the first vice president. Yeah, that's your big achievement. You grew a cantaloupe. Awesome. Well, last night, as I said, was the torch passing. Joe Biden spoke. I'm going to break that down for you about what day one is, because I had some issues with this. I mean, honest to God, this thing is supposed to be scripted by the likes of like Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steven Spielberg. It did not go well. Didn't go well. I mean, and I'll explain what I'm talking about in just a minute. I want to thank one of our big sponsors, though, right now, because one of the things that also isn't going well is that while Democrats were in control, they funded over 50,000 IRS agents. And I've told you this before, these guys don't sit around twiddling their thumbs. They've got the full resources of the federal government behind them. So it's not like a cost-benefit analysis. Who makes more sense to go after? They don't care if you're the 5,000, 50,000, $5 million. They're coming after you. Personal, business, doesn't matter, right? They want their money, and they want to just be able to claim that this is how much they're bringing in. They got to show something for all this money to the Democrats. So they're going to come after you. They'll squeeze you, and they'll get you to admit that you owe more money, because that's what they can do. They got the full force of the government. The good thing, though, is that you have someone on your side. The folks at Tax Network USA have recovered over $1 billion for their clients. And so if you get one of these pay up notices, that's what they're called, from the IRS, do not speak to the IRS. Do not answer the call. Do not respond to their visit until you talk to my friends at Tax Network USA. These guys are the professionals that have proven results for their clients. Call 1-800-245-6000 or go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer, full name there, tnusa.com/Sean Spicer, and get the professionalism, the expertise, and the results that Tax Network brings to the table before you talk to the IRS. All right, so this was day one. You're supposed to kick off with a bang, right? And you got all these highfalutin Hollywood types. And yet, a couple things. One, I think the speakers were not, they were like angry. I mean, AOC getting up there, Hillary Clinton sounded bitter. She was almost chastising people. You didn't vote for me the first time, and look what happened, and so now you can make your right your wrong. It sounded like I'm upset, I'm mean, I'm mad. They ran super late. right? So they ended up cutting out like 4 speakers, and even they booted James Taylor. He was supposed to play. I always like a good James Taylor song, right? Who knows what he would have sang? I don't know. We won't ever know, maybe. But they had to boot a ton of people, and they had jammed Biden up. Look, we all knew he was going to run late. The White House schedule had him starting at, I think, 10:45 Eastern Standard Time. The convention schedule had him starting at 10:50. Theoretically, they're only supposed to cover till 11. We all know that people go late, and the networks know that. But in theory, that was the idea. Which, first of all, I get that that's in theory the big thing, and the West Coast people, blah blah blah. But you're relegating him to the very end, which we all know he doesn't do well at. I mean, the idea that you're waiting for him to show up at 10 o'clock, is that really the best idea for this guy? Well, let me get to it. So he finally speaks, and just keep in mind, remember when I said he's supposed to start between 10:45 and 10:50. You know when he started? 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's just say you're in Central Time Zone. That's 10:30. No genius here. Who did they think was going to watch this? And maybe, just maybe, this was intentional. And there's a lot of Democrats that think this was intentional. They knew that Biden would be a reminder to what all of their problems were. I get that. And so there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, they knew this was going to run late. So they put him at the end, and then they just pushed and pushed and pushed. And again, think about this for a second. The guy doesn't start until 11:32 p.m. And then he goes on for almost 50 minutes. Who the heck watched that? No one. And then, by the way, here's the deal. If you did watch it, this is what you saw. This is what he was taught. This is what I think they were fearful of. Apparently, women have some issues. Let me show you what he said.
Quote, women are not without electoral.
Oh, sorry, women. You don't have electrical. We're going to get you electrical. And that was him quoting, by the way. It's all in the teleprompter. But you have to wonder if they did want him to go this late, because they knew that he was a reminder. He was yelling in the microphone again. Democracy is on the ballot, blah, blah, blah. He reminded people of why they wanted to get rid of him. Conventions are supposed to be 4 days of like an infomercial. Here's why you should vote for us. Here's all the great people in our party. Last night was grievance night. It was supposed to be for the people was their big thing. It was grievance night. Here's why we're angry. Here's what, it wasn't positive. And one of the UAW leaders, Sean Fain's his name, I think, he gets up there and he rips off his shirt trying to be like Hulk Hogan. And it says Trump is a scab, which is some union. It was the whole night. Jamie Raskin, the congressman from Maryland, he gets up there and starts trying to go after Trump. As I said, Hillary was grievance filled. Biden speaks 11:30 at night. I don't know how you can be happy if you're a Democrat with night one, because a lot of people didn't see it. What they saw was kind of weird. I don't know why they did what they did. Okay. They had to get rid of, there's a woman named Grace Meng. She's a congressman from New York. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the former chair of the DNC from Florida, all got yanked. It was unbelievable. I want to read you. I mentioned this. This is literally Playbook, how they characterize this. On the one hand, the sloppy run of show felt entirely familiar to anyone who has attended Democratic news conferences on Capitol Hill, which tend to be governed by the old saw. There's nothing to be left to be said, but everyone has to say it, meaning they're just all going to repeat the same thing over and over again. These are your friends. This is political playbook. They're basically surrogates for the Biden campaign. Eugene Daniels, who writes for them, who's also, by the way, the president of the White House Correspondents Association, is basically a Kamala spokesperson. That's not like an exaggeration. Like, he is the Kamala spokesperson. He may be press secretary if she were to win. I mean, that's how bad it is. By the way, this is how the Huffington Post, you want to talk about Politico being on Team Biden and Team Harris. Huffington Post is literally all about the left, right? I mean, that's their shtick. This is how they portrayed Biden's speech. With an unpopular president first forced out of office by party bosses, then forced to deliver his big convention speech after the coveted primetime hours when many Americans had already gone to bed. I mean, the left is noticing this. The sloppiness of it when they put Biden. Hey, look, great, I'm happy. I mean, I don't get it. And this is the party that has the media apparatus, the Hollywood apparatus all built in. I look back and I'm thinking, hey, we don't do bad, do we? I thought that Republican National Convention was the best that I've ever seen. The best. And we don't have all those built-in advantages that they do we? I mean, this was a clown show. I don't know how you can be happy. These guys fail forward, though. They'll all praise each other for a great job. I get it. They had to get Biden out of the way. Tonight, the Obamas, Michelle and Barack. Now, here's my prediction. I believe, you remember Michelle last time, when they go low, we go high. Wrong. You guys are, and it was everyone in the media is like, oh, they're talking about going high. And then they go after Trump. I mean, they say these things and then they do the opposite, but they get credit for saying them. The media is like, well, Michelle Obama gave that great moniker. What? I mean, they're nasty people. They're mean. And yet they get credit because they say things like that. Well, tonight, here's my prediction. I believe that Michelle Obama will go after Trump. That's her job. She's going to be the attack dog. And Barack Obama is going to be highfalutin. Talk about hope and forward, change, joy. You know, that's what they're going to use him to cast her in this forward-thinking, beautiful way. We're going to paint a picture of her that's so nice. We're not going to talk about communism and socialism, price controls, all those things that she wants to do, right? And then Michelle Obama, who speaks a little earlier, will be the attack dog. I will be interested to see, after last night, does Obama get pushed? Or does he speak exactly when he's supposed to speak? My guess is that he will speak exactly when he's supposed to speak, because guess what? They want Obama. They want to hear from him. They didn't want to hear from Biden. They had no problem being like, tick, 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 let's push you off stage, kind of like we pushed you out of the way, right? It was unbelievable, though, how this whole thing went down. All right. In a minute, though, I've got Michael Starr Hopkins. He's a Democratic consultant operative. I want to see how they think they did. We'll get their reaction. Then remember, later this week, James Blair, he is the political director from the Trump campaign. He is going to come and talk to us about what their ground game looks at. Because I've said this over and over again, and most of you know this, 75,000 votes in 3 states determined the outcome of 2016. Trump ended up winning with 306 electoral votes, which looks great in the Electoral College. But if you shifted 75,000 votes, Hillary would be president. And in the books, Biden ended up taking his win with basically the same 306 electoral votes, because 44,000 votes in 3 states. You think about Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin. Think about this. This is a get out the vote election. Take the people that are with you and make sure that they cast a vote. Early, absentee, in person, on election day, doesn't matter. That's what James Blair's job is to do, to coordinate that effort. Because you support Donald Trump, doesn't matter if you actually don't go vote. His job is to make sure you vote. And I want to hear from him. You're going to want to hear this, because this is the whole ball game. I always tell people politics is like marketing. You got to get people to want to buy your product. Liking it is one thing. If you don't buy it, your company goes bankrupt. In politics, if they like your candidate, but they don't volunteer, donate, or vote for you, it doesn't matter. That's the thing about polls. They give you a snapshot. They tell you where they are. Then you actually got to do the hard work. Anyway, speaking of Trump, though, and his support, I cannot believe that Don Lemon posted this. So you remember Don Lemon? He got fired from CNN. Then he tried to make a deal with Elon. Then Elon canned him. I mean, actually, think about that. He got canned twice. Well, he is doing his own little, I don't even know what it is. It's like a show. But he went out to Atlantic City, New Jersey. Now, if you think about it, Atlantic City, New Jersey is not exactly a hotbed of Republican politics, nor is it a hotbed of MAGA Republicans. Okay? That's a fact. Look at New Jersey. It doesn't vote for Republicans. So Don Lemon thought, hey, I'm going to go interview people and see what they think, and I'll show you what people really think about Donald Trump, everyday people. I'm going to go beyond the polls. Let me play for you what Don Lemon found and then actually post it. Take a look.
Here in Jersey, Atlantic City. Who do you support?
I plead the fifth.
Trump for the win.
Tell me why.
I can't really call that right now, but I just feel like she's not good for president. She's good vice, but not for the actual lead role for the country.
Does it have anything to do with being a woman?
No. No, because I feel like women, nah, you're not going to give me that.
Your money's on Harris.
Yeah,
Who do you want?
Trump.
Why don't you like Harris?
She don't have any experience.
She's the vice president. She's a senator.
Yeah, no experience. No. She has no experience.
Well, I want Donald Trump. I just feel we need somebody that has a stronger background with the military and the world in general.
She was a prosecutor and an attorney general and a senator and a vice president. You're in a gambling town. Who's your money on?
I'm going to support the Democratic Party, but, I mean, Trump looks like he got it in the bag right now.
4 years ago, it was a lot better. I made a lot more money than I do now.
I know you feel that way, but that's not actually what the record shows. The economy is actually better under Biden. No, I'm serious. That's what the facts show.
Okay, you know what?
No, that's not because I watch CNN. Trump or Harris?
Trump.
That's who's going to win.
That's who's going to win.
Who you support?
I support Trump. All the people that came to this country legally, it's not fair that they're letting all 10,000 to 15,000 people or 20,000 people here illegally. Have you seen San Diego? Yeah. They're coming off the boats, off the water right here, off the ocean. Did you know Biden was flying them in? Did you know Biden was flying them in? You didn't know that?
Oh, I know nobody likes him, but we had good times with Donald Trump. Our economy was good. Life was good.
But you know the economy's better under Biden than Trump.
Bullshit.
Well, that's what the stats show. That's what the facts show.
Well, you know what? I don't know where they're getting their facts, but I don't think they're valid. I don't know where their facts are coming from.
Don Lemon posted that. That's not edited. That's Atlantic City, New Jersey on the boardwalk. That tells you something. We need to do the hard work. We need to get out and vote. But that tells you what's really going on. I mean, you see him. I'm trying to sell people, right? The economy, this, and here's what it really is. People know they're smarter than this, than what CNN and others are trying to tell them. By the way, Don Lemon didn't expect that. You can't expect when things are going to go south. And they may, at any time now, power can go out. It could go out for hours, days, weeks, or even months for a variety of reasons. And that's why I have a Patriot Power Generator 2000X in my house, and you should too. Go to 4patriots.com/Spicer, 4patriots.com/Spicer to get your Patriot Power Generator 2000X. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've had a generator in my house for years. I had a gas one. We lost power 10 years ago, and I was running back and forth to the gas station. Think about this. You have to go back and forth. You have to be that close because it only lasts for so long because you have to fill the thing back up. It makes a ton of noise. You got a lot of fumes, and you got to hope the gas station's open, that it's going to remain open, that it takes credit cards, etc. The Patriot Power Generator 2000X runs entirely on solar panels that come free with it. And it powers the most powerful things in your house, your refrigerator, your tablets, your TVs, your medical devices, and it's portable. You can bring it in your house because, as I said, no fumes, no noise. You can bring it to your family member's house, your friend's house. This is the solution you're going to want to have in a time of emergency. Don't wait. Do not wait. Do not regret not having one of these. Go to 4patriots.com/Spicer. All right, I want to give you two quick updates because I tell you all the time about how close these elections were. 75,000 votes, 3 states, 2016, 44,000 votes, 3 states, 2020. You know what the big difference in 2016 was? The third party candidates. Look at where Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, did well, Michigan, etc. And that actually helped Trump. So keeping an eye on the third parties matter. And today I want to highlight 2 of them for you. Cornel West is getting a ton of help. I want to read you this. A group of lawyers with deep ties to the Republican Party scrambled over the weekend to rescue an effort to get independent presidential candidate Cornel West on the Arizona ballot, offering one of the clearest examples of the GOP's extensive involvement in furthering the left-wing academics' long-shot bid, reports the Associated Press. Republicans have worked to get West on the ballot in Arizona, Wisconsin, Virginia, North Carolina, Nebraska, because Nebraska, too, we talked about this, how important that could possibly be, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Maine, again, Maine, too, all in the hope that West will boost the former president's chances of winning later this year by pulling support from Harris. This is good politics. This is smart. Kudos to the right for doing this. They took their eye off the ball in 2020, to be honest with you. When I talked to people, they were like, oh, well, we didn't see any evidence that the right was helping. Get him on the ballot. Give people an option. Do you know how many people might be upset with Kamala Harris for a variety of reasons? Let them go vote, but vote for not her. Because in many cases, they won't vote for Trump. Give them a home. And that's a good thing. West is to the left of her, believe it or not. That's good. Now, on the other good news, Robert F. Kennedy's campaign pulled in just $5.6 million last month, and it spent $7 million. This thing is in a tailspin. That's a good thing. I wrote this in my Substack the other day, by the way. If you ever want to get on my newsletter, go to SeanSpicer.com. Sign up. Hopefully, and please, I'd love for you to become a paid subscriber. It's $7 a month. If you do that, that would mean a lot to me. But check it out. I wrote about RFK last week. When it was Biden and Trump, people were worried because there was an equal amount of people that were upset with Biden, an equal number. And so it was kind of took from, both equally. Well, now that they've kicked off Biden and replaced him with Harris, a lot of those people found a home in Kamala. I firmly believe that it's hurting Trump, his candidacy. Robert F. Kennedy is hurting Trump more. If you're a Trump supporter voting for Kennedy, you're hurting Trump. In crucial states, that could matter. So this is a good sign for us. I don't want him on ballots. I don't want him. I want Cornel West on. I want Jill Stein on. I don't want him. And if you're a Trump supporter, if you want Trump to win, you don't want Robert F. Kennedy on the ballot as well. The Biden folks, the left, all went home. They found a new home in Harris. She's crazy, communist, socialist, progressive. That's where they want to go. I'm just telling you, this is a good thing. But it's important to keep an eye on the third parties. All right. I want to bring in Michael Starr Hopkins. He's a big Democratic operative to give us a take on how last night went for them. It's important. Did they actually think they did well? I don't. You heard my take. Did they? And what do they have planned going forward? Before I do that, I want to tell you about a good friend of mine, Leo Grillo from Delta Rescue. If you go to deltarescue.org, you will see the amazing work that Leo Grillo and deltarescue.org does. I have said before that when I first met Leo Grillo, I said to him, I've rescued 3 dogs. They were, I've been to the shelter. And he was like, Sean, Delta Rescue is not a shelter. It's a no-kill sanctuary for life. To be honest with you, I didn't really understand the difference. But that's the difference there. It's a no-kill sanctuary for life. They take in dogs, cats, horses, all sorts of animals that need help. They've been abused, neglected, whatever, and give them the veterinary care, the nutritional care that they need for life. And it's because of our generosity that it can happen, right? If you go to deltarescue.org and you look at the videos, you'll see what I'm talking about. Think about if you can make a contribution, because that's how it runs. Leo started this. He's trying to pull it off, but he needs our help. Go to deltarescue.org. Think about a contribution. 50, 100, 1,000, who cares? Any amount helps. But then there's also a tab up there that says estate planning. Think about it if you can make Delta Rescue part of your estate and your legacy. I know that would mean a lot to Leo so that this is an enduring mission that lasts for generations and decades to come. Thank you for your consideration. All right, without further ado, Michael Starr Hopkins. Michael, thanks for joining us. Let me ask you this just off the top. How do you grade last night? Tell me, did you guys do what you wanted to do?
I think Yeah, I mean, I think I'll give us an A- just because things went a little past schedule.
I want to take your class. I'm like,
I mean, look, I think conventions are, I was having this conversation with my grandmother today. Conventions are a relic. Like, the average voter is not watching a convention. It is a very, I think, inside the beltway thing that people are tuning into. And I actually don't think conventions move the needle at all. I think it pays consultants and guys like us.
that being said, who was the most compelling speaker in your mind last night?
I thought Mallory McMorrow, she's a
state senator from Michigan.
Yeah, I actually had her on my podcast earlier this week, and she talked a lot about how she got to being a state senator. And she reminds me of kind of like a Midwest version of AOC, very much the kind of Midwest
with
mom.
Red hair. with
there you go. It's the redheaded version of AOC.
But why? I mean, okay, so let me just ask you this. Do you know, I'm always intrigued by something like that. Like, how does a random state senator from Michigan pick that? What didn't I realize about her background that maybe someone like you did?
Well, it's about her story during, when that kind of grooming conversation was going on with Republicans. She was someone who took it head on and really fought back and pushed back against the guy that accused her of supporting grooming little kids. And she's used that, as well as talking about abortion and women's rights, to really kind of position herself as that young new wave. When you look at Michigan, it's got, they got Gretchen Whitmer, they've got the Attorney General Nestler, and they've got her. It's really a woman-led state.
All right, so let me just ask you, if you, I get we're from different ends of the political spectrum, so I don't necessarily agree with your assessment, but if as a Democrat, you found her compelling.
I did, and I found the fact that she is taking on Project 2025, and Democrats have finally successfully messaged something in a way that it's resonating across the spectrum. I hear young people talking about Project 2025. I hear my grandmother talking about it. It's something.
When you say, all right, so let me ask you this: when you say that you hear her talking about it, is she talking about it substantively, or is she asking you questions as someone who's like an insider and saying, Michael, I keep hearing about this, explain it to me? Or does she have a fundamental understanding of what it is?
She has a understanding of what she believes it to be, which, for Democrats, we see it as a blueprint for how Republicans want to run the government heading into a potential Trump administration.
And what is her biggest concern with it, or your biggest concern with it, if that were the case?
Yeah, I think abortion bans and the not restrictions, but kind of the dismantling of government and taking a lot of the regular day-to-day workers out, putting a loyalty pledge on government workers.
So let me just add, and again, it's funny that the conversation is going this way because I'll get back to the convention, but I want to ask you, like, do you honestly think that, like, if you walk down the mainstream, Main Street USA, mm-hmm. and you said, hey, there's this secret plan to reduce the size of government and to get rid of bureaucrats, do you think that that's a compelling issue for a lot of voters?
No, I think this is part of the political game. Democrats have used Project 2025, which I think does have some scary components in it, just like Republicans have used immigration to really incite not just like a fear, but an emotional response. Because you and I both know the way.
No. I get that. And I agree with you. I guess what I'm getting at is you chose that one topic, and I'm trying to understand, like, you're right about immigration. Like, I fear for it. I fear what the left is doing with it. And I think that it instills fear in other people. But I'm asking you the same thing about that aspect of Project 2025. When you talk to your grandmother or a regular voter and you say, hey, there's this secret plan that is called Project 2025, and part of that project is to do the following with government workers.
Yeah.
Do you think that issue instills fear?
The government workers in itself, no. But Democrats innately have a trust of the government that I don't think, I know Republicans do. And so I think when you start talking about destroying the government or taking government workers out, there's an inherent sense of, oh no, the people that are protecting us are no longer going to be there for that stopgap. And I think that's
okay.
The scary
and the funny thing is, you and I both agree on that, the assessment that you just gave, right? I want smaller, more efficient government. You guys generally want more. Okay, so that's why what I'm getting at is that I find it interesting that you picked that one aspect, or that you mentioned that your grandmother mentioned, because I just don't know. And I mean, again, I think we both look at things from our perspective. And I think to myself, God, if someone walked up to me and said, there's this secret plan to reduce the number of government workers and da-da-da, I'd be like, awesome, great. And I think that that's funny because each side seems to think that it plays better for them. I get that it motivates. Your base says, oh my God, can you imagine what they would do? And my side says, thank you. Right. But the question is who are we actually persuading? Is it just a motivating thing, do you think? Or do you think it actually persuades anyone?
So I think the idea that we're persuading people at this point is done. And I think it's specifically just because of the Trump, Biden / Harris. People say they don't know Harris, but she's going to be tied to the Biden administration. And so those are two very well-known candidates. And the idea that people are going to be persuaded, I think, is a fallacy. It's whether you can turn people out, whether you can scare them or give them hope, whatever their motivator is going to be, you got to motivate people.
All right. So let me kind of do this in order. The state senator from Michigan that you mentioned spoke. And then I think the next big one was, I mean, obviously there was some in between. But I mean, I think in terms of real big names, I think Hillary Clinton was probably the next big one. What did you think of her speech last night?
So I think with the Clintons, it's always complicated. I worked on Hillary's campaign, and I think she was a good warning to Democrats, but especially white women who voted for Trump in a higher rate than they did for Hillary Clinton, that there was a shot to have our first female president. And because Democrats honestly didn't come out and didn't really get out to vote, there wasn't an enthusiastic vote, she didn't win. I've always said that.
Don't you think that was because, I mean, and I actually, again, we're in agreement on that analysis, but I think part of it was because of her. And I looked at the speech last night and I felt like she was, I don't know, bitter. Like it was sort of like she was like, you guys screwed up last time, don't do it again. And I felt like, hey, I'm not really sure that you're, I mean, it's like before Kamala, don't be pissed because you screwed it. It was almost like she was like, you screwed up with me, don't do it again. And I was like, wow, I'm not really sure that that's the strongest message. I think people didn't like her and that benefited Trump. And I'm not really sure reminding them why they didn't like you was the strongest message last night.
I think a couple of things can be true. I think Hillary Clinton had 30 years of a prior track record that Republicans were really good at being able to define who she was, and it creeped over. And Democrats, I think, they started to believe the things that Republicans said about her. I have to admit, I am guilty of it to some degree too. I've talked about the fact that I didn't think Hillary was likable enough. But with that said, that speech, my wife said something to me last night that I thought was interesting. She said that she thought that Hillary Clinton was really the warning, and there wouldn't be a Kamala Harris campaign if Hillary Clinton hadn't lost that first race.
Yeah, but true, but also like there would be a Kamala race if Joe Biden hadn't gotten pushed out. She didn't win a primary. I mean, Hillary Clinton at least won the primary and became the nominee. I don't know. I mean, I was talking about this last night with somebody, and it was interesting because there's this whole juxtaposition about Biden's legacy, right? Will he be seen as a hero for stepping aside or not? And then there's a lot of people that say, well, it depends on the outcome. If Trump wins, they're going to say he didn't move out soon enough, right? And I said in response, that's a very interesting angle because had Biden, quote, gotten out of the way earlier, I don't know that Kamala Harris would be the nominee. Like if he got out
That's right.
in March and you guys had some kind of free-for-all shortened primary or all these silly notions that were being talked about, who knows? I mean, she didn't do well the last time. I don't know. Maybe she could have consolidated power, maybe not, but I think she would have been more bruised. I don't know. And so I think that's people, when they do political analysis, it's like, you know, I remember back in economics in college.
Long ago?
Yeah, by the way, I only remember because I got a D. And but they always used to talk about holding certain things constant. Like we're going to raise the price of housing, but we'll hold this. And I was like, that's not a real world example. You can't just hold one aspect of the economy constant, right? And that was my issue, is that I just couldn't get my head wrapped around the silliness of some of these econ classes. And I think politically, sometimes we say, well, if Joe Biden did this, then this would have happened. And it's like as if no other forces would have been at play. And if Biden had backed out earlier, there would have been greater calls and an opportunity to have some kind of primary process. And who knows how she would have fared.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 100% true. And it's been interesting. This has been the perfect amount of time for her campaign to really get its legs and have a sprint. I'm not sure that this campaign would have been able to be built for a marathon. We saw kind of in the primary, she just wasn't comfortable, or rather in her primary in 2020. She wasn't comfortable with herself. She wasn't, I don't think
you can't go through a primary without talking. I mean, you need the press. You need earned media, and frankly, you need to lean either right or left, depending on which party you're in. She couldn't have gotten away with what she's getting away with now. And so that in itself, if there had been a primary, she would have had to be sitting down for interviews, making the case for herself versus another primary foe.
I think she had one more big problem that wasn't accounted for. It reminds me a lot of Barack Obama during Iowa, when black voters weren't comfortable supporting him yet because they didn't think that white Democrats would support him. And so there was this big gap between African-American support. Once he won the Iowa caucus and African-American voters understood that white voters would vote for him, then he had an avalanche support. And I think the same is true for Kamala Harris. She didn't have high level of African-American support when she ran in 2020. Now that she's the nominee, I mean, I think you are going to see numbers that are, if not at where Obama was in 2008, may actually exceed them.
And is that black women, black men, or all?
All.
Really?
I mean, yeah.
So in your mind, is this idea that Trump is doing better with black men a made up thing? Is it real, or is the pie just bigger?
They were doing better with black men under Joe Biden. When I talked to black men when Biden was running, there was just a disconnect. They didn't feel like he was really their champion, that he was going to fight for them. Now that you've got Kamala Harris, a black woman who not only there have been, attacks on her race, on her sex, and so there's that circling of the wagons. But now that we know that she has the opportunity to actually win, it really changes kind of the calculus. African-American voters, we're not monolithic, but we are very pragmatic. And so we want to make sure whoever we vote for is going to actually win.
All right, so let's move on to Biden. What did you think of his speech last night?
I thought it was a good way for him to run through his successes, but I'm not going to lie. I also think it reminded a lot of Democrats of why it was time for him to step aside.
It was funny. I agree with you. And I mean, it's neither here nor there because he's gone. But last night I was like, man, you're yelling. You didn't. And it was funny because the Harris campaign has clearly turned the page on this democracy messaging. And they want to be joyful and hopeful and future forward focused. And yet Biden was like, well, I'm going to remind you all of the reasons that you got rid of me in one night.
I will say, I think he ran through the list of his successes, but the optics are always going to be the problem for him. Whenever he gets up there, you worry about how he sounds, how he looks, and that becomes the focus of the entire speech.
Right. I mean, look, you and I both know politics. Perception is king in politics. Mm-hmm. It's what people hear. It's what people, turn your words into sometimes. Yeah. And so the reality is image matters, and it just doesn't sell what he's doing. But let me ask you this, as a seasoned operative on the left, there was a lot of stuff that I read this morning in some of the trades, Politico, et cetera, about some of the Biden people feeling snubbed because he didn't start until well after 11:30. Yeah. That's well outside of prime time. I actually thought that even as scheduled, the 10:45 Eastern time, which is that final slot. And I get it. It's supposed to be, but like people aren't up, like people have jobs. And I, if I were a speaker, I'd want to be at 9 o'clock. I'd be like, that's where I want to go. People want to tune in, watch it, and then go to bed.
I think Democrats are kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't on this one, because they've got to make sure that they give the West Coast an opportunity to see the end of the night. If they had pulled Biden into earlier in the show, then it would have been a snub. But if you keep him at the end, we all know that these things run late. When I looked at the speakers list at 7 o'clock, I knew there was no way he was going to get on stage by 10:30. And it's the same thing with football games, with the Super Bowl. All these things are too late. By 10 o'clock, like I'm ready to put sweatpants on and call it a night.
I'm with you. How concerned are you about the optics of these protests? It was, to me, I think that when people ask me, like, what during a convention, your goal is to to own 4 days of programming. You want people to walk out of there better than they started the first day, like in terms of the vision of who you are. The protests to me are the big X factor during the DNC, right? If these things boil over, that becomes a story that you don't want.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got to be really careful. So far, I would say mostly so good. You haven't seen a lot of violence. I know you saw the tipped over barrier, but police were able to come in, arrest the person, and then, there wasn't much after that. I think some of this has been a media narrative that could potentially create a scenario, something I know Republicans, you guys have had to deal with as well. Some of this is new for Democrats, I got to say. You and I talked about previously how Republicans have had a hard time from the media. And I think Democrats are now learning how to play defense a little bit in the same way. And so I think what Democrats have to do is show that they're listening to the protesters, but also show that there is no tolerance for violence. There is no tolerance for anything that's outside of just expressing your First Amendment right.
So one of the things that I know is a big issue for a lot of us on the right is we believe that, this whole idea of our southern border being porous and open is a major concern. And there's this debate since Donald Trump came on the scene about walls.
Yeah.
And you see it now in Chicago. I mean, massive walls put up, fencing and wall for obvious reasons, because it's about the security of the delegates and the guests going to the DNC. Mm-hmm. How do you answer when folks on my side say to you, okay, if walls are so bad, why do you guys think that they're so good for when it comes to events like this to protect the people inside? Isn't that what we should be doing to protect our country?
Well, putting up barriers around the United Center, I think, is a lot fundamentally different than trying to put a wall across our entire southern border. We can do things in a smart way that are going to secure the border. There's drone technology, there's laser technology, there's all kinds of things that we can do to protect the border without spending. I think we spent $15 billion on the border wall that got put up under Trump, and it wasn't very large of a section. So Listen, I think Democrats have had a tough time trying to message immigration and trying to message the border, because we're much more of a huggy-feely kind of party. We really want to make sure that the things we're doing come off as fair and humane. And so,
but wouldn't you argue? I mean, my point is, look, you guys want to be secure inside the United Center. You don't want some nut job coming in hurting anybody. Mm-hmm. I don't want someone coming in this country to hurt anybody. And we might not be able to protect every foot of border, but why not do as much as possible to keep people out and sort of have the all of the above? Put a wall, put a drone up, but a drone isn't going to stop somebody from walking across the border. A wall will, or a fence.
I mean, a wall, we've already proven that a wall hasn't. We've seen people chip away at walls, go under walls, go around walls.
Then why put it up at the United Center if someone could chip away or get under it?
Because a wall is just a first step. It's a boundary.
Okay,
so,
fair.
But trying to put a wall around the United Center is very different, and from trying to put a wall up around the United States. Our southern border is bigger than most countries. Isn't like trying to put
let's just say for hypothetical purposes, it's 100 feet. Our border is 100 feet. If we could put up border wall on 50 of it, then that protects 50 in a different way, and then we have to keep more of a human security focus on the other 50. But it takes I'd rather have 50 of it guarded with fence than none of it. And so I get it. It's not a building, but you can still utilize all the tools in the toolbox.
But if we're going to spend $15 billion on 50 feet of fence, or we could spend $15 billion on 1,000 miles of actual security, then my argument would be spend that $15 billion on the 1,000 miles of high security, high technology fencing that would work, not just something that so you can say that we have a wall, because it's a good talking point.
Yeah, I just don't know when someone blows something up, how much that's going to cost us, or kills, how many lives.
God forbid.
Yeah. All right, Michael, thanks for joining us and giving us your take. All right, guys, we got 3 more days of the DNC. On Friday, Trump's political director, James Blair, is going to be here to break down the ground game, what they're doing in these final days to win. Please continue to subscribe, hit that notification button. You never know when we're going live, so hit that subscribe and notification button, YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.